You know, normally when I have expectations of something, 9 times out of 10, I get met with disappointment. But I got 2 things going for me right now that I'm very pleased to report about. The first one is very serious. In case you haven't noticed, woo! The Knicks, baby, in the fucking finals. Let's go! But you probably clicked this video to not speak about the Knicks. You clicked this video because, yes, I'm talking about the Backrooms, because somehow, someway, a simple horror movie that started from the internet with 3D modeling met my expectations being adapted onto the big screen, and I'll explain why. Hi, welcome back to the channel. My name is Raf Polo Laurent, and today I'm doing a follow-up video to my previous video. It was basically a video of what I want to see from the Backrooms movie coming out. So maybe check out that video before checking out this one. But to shoot myself in the foot for a second and give you my overall feelings and destroy myself in the algorithm, I really did enjoy the movie. You don't have to wait 10 minutes for me to say that. I did enjoy the movie, and I'm going to explain why. So that being said, spoilers, obviously, if you haven't seen the movie yet, you can check out my video after the movie. Or if you just want to hear overall analysis and you're fine with that, hey, be my guest. I am here for you the way Jalen Brunson is there for me in the NBA Finals. Knicks in 4, baby, let's go! I promise that is the last time I'm going to reference the Knicks. So pop out your energy drinks, but this time I have a watermelon Monster energy drink. Gonna try this for the first time. Oh yeah, that might be my new favorite Monster flavor. Leave a comment down below on what energy drink I should try next, because I need the caffeine to record these videos in between my 9 to 5 at 3 a.m. in the morning. But without further ado, let's get into the video. Now, you can watch other channels for an overall, more detailed analysis for a breakdown of the story, such as this video over here. I'll put it here. This guy makes really good Backrooms videos and has good analysis of the story. But I'm going to sort of run through the story in a way chronologically to highlight more of the themes, the theories, the symbolisms I noticed on my journey watching this movie. So let me walk you through my path. And listen, you can have the internet horror aesthetics, you can have beautiful imagery and after effects, but at the end of the day, you need the meat and potatoes to be good, to be a good movie. And that's just a good ass narrative, something that wants me to follow the story. And I think that's what this movie did very well in. For instance, right off the bat, we begin with a lost footage intro of one of those yellow suit guys essentially being panicked and looking for the rest of his group. And whether you're a person who likes internet horror or not, I feel like this is a good introduction to both of those fans of people that are watching horror movies. And this lost footage sort of emphasizes the setting to let you know that something is off about the area that we're currently in. The build up to that, with a random fucking seagull just flying through the room. The liminality around this person currently that we're following, closing in on him, like we're just waiting for something to happen. He hears something, he's running, and then ultimately he runs into an entity and gets killed off screen. By what exactly though? We don't get to see that specific entity. But quick side note, off rip in my last video I talked about how there were Backrooms purists who wanted no entities and no monsters in this Backrooms movie, and they're already being told off rip like, no, this is going to be my version of the Backrooms, my version meaning Kane Pixel's version online, where there are entities in my world. And I love that decision by Kane to establish that, like, what sort of version of the Backrooms we're seeing on the screen. We then meet our character Clark, who we follow throughout the movie. We come to learn through bits and pieces of the movie where he's speaking to the therapist Mary, who we will discuss later. But Clark is very annoyed about a divorce he's going through, and he makes that very clear in therapy. He blames the fact that he is extremely stressed from putting his dreams of being an architect on hold to support himself and his partner. And I think that's a great premise to start on. It's such a normal problem, normal day-to-day issue that I feel like a lot of relationships, a lot of families go through, where people just feel like they have to put their dreams on hold. I mean, I could just tell you from personal experience, like, hell, I would like to be making videos all the fucking time. But hey, I'm doing my best and I do what I like to do in between the times of working a 9 to 5. And it's tough. So I can relate to Clark in that sense, person to person. But the other added thing that we get introduced to this character is that he owns a failing pirate-themed furniture store called the Ottoman Empire. And what I like about this setting is sort of how Kane gets that early 2000s store feeling aesthetic, right? From this shitty pirate advertising to the style of the furniture. I really felt like I time traveled to like a Sears or a Macy's in the early 2000s that my mom would drag me out to. I think this was a great starting point to establish the time place that we're in. You know, when I watch a series like Breaking Bad, I feel like I'm in Albuquerque, New Mexico. Or when I watch a series like Game of Thrones, or the original Lord of the Rings trilogy, I feel like I'm in Middle Earth, Seven Kingdoms kind of area, you know? And that's what the Backrooms movie did for me throughout the movie. I truly felt like I was time traveled back in time. And even the Backrooms itself gives this, you know, white fluorescent lights, yellow backgrounds. Like I just feel like I'm somewhere nostalgic. And that has to do with the aesthetics, but also the liminality, the themes of nostalgia in Kane's work. Emphasizing the setting is actually something I wanted and discussed in my wish list in my video previously. So yeah, I'm a very happy camper about that. But we continue to follow our character's descent, as well as the discovery of the backrooms in one of the walls to his store. And man, the adaptation of the backrooms online to the big screen was done perfectly, with some cameos of the pool rooms and other neat fan services. However, we are then introduced to our second protagonist, a therapist named Mary, who I mentioned Clark was speaking all his problems to her because she's his therapist. And she's sort of helping Clark through all of these troubles when he mentions this weird other world connected to his furniture store. Of course, our therapist character is unconvinced until we are met with the fact that her childhood trauma of being locked up inside. In my opinion, the movie kind of alludes to her mom suffering from going outside the house, and perhaps alluding to the fact that she has seen the back rooms and it fucked her up mentally. I don't know, that's kind of my interpretation of why the mom was so mentally ill and refused to go outside. I thought that was an allusion to other characters discovering the back rooms. But that trauma, on top of what Clark mentioned in a voicemail, caused her to go seek him out at the furniture store. She then goes into the back rooms, and thus we see the heel turn of our original character Clark. At this point, a lot of mental faculties has deteriorated, and as a result of all the stress we discussed before, and one of my favorite interactions and themes discussed in the movie is said during this part between these characters in this section of the back rooms. It is at this point our character Clark has fully given into his demons, and Mary bears witness to all this in the scene where she's tied up to a chair from Clark. It is here where it is discussed from Clark that these weird entities that they're in the room with, and even the room itself, he discovers is a fragment of a memory, or like a distorted memory. And that's what I like about this version of the Backrooms. They don't explain how, they don't explain why, it just is. This room would be in the Backrooms, but there would be little details and little things mixed up. For example, maybe this like drawer over here would be slightly slanted or connected more into the wall. And the way they show this with Mary's childhood trauma of her being in that room, it just goes room by room by room, getting more and more distorted. And I really like that detail and that little tweak into this version of the Backrooms. But as I said before, distorted memory, right? This gives allowance to these slight differences. And this can cause something scary, like these entities are fucking freaky. The man sitting at the table with them, having 6 eyes, for example, in the Hawaiian shirt. But Clark goes on to explain that somewhere in the real world, this man with the Hawaiian shirt does exist without these imperfections with the 6 eyes and stuff. But Clark sees these creatures as an evolution, something that he himself wishes to be, devoid of pain, devoid of stress. And he proves this to Mary by running a knife through the man's neck, and it doesn't seem to affect him. He doesn't react to it. That knife is then used to show another revelation, that the man is edible. Yes, you heard me. I never thought those words would leave my mouth. The man is edible. But our character Clark deadass just takes a chunk out of this memory entity thing, and we see the inside of him, which is made up of this white substance. Now, in the Backrooms lore, we know how you sustain yourself in the Backrooms, at least as it relates to the wiki, is by a substance called almond water. Almond water. Almond water? Mario, right? But this substance is known for its sweet flavor, and it replenishes people and makes them, it sustains them essentially in these levels, because it's not like you can just go out and find a pig or something like that. But I wonder if there is a correlation, like this man is made of a thick almond substance that is comparable to the almond water. Now, I hope it does divert from the wiki direction. If you check out my last video, I also mentioned how I found the wiki version of the Backrooms with different numerical levels and different entities in each level specific to that level. I find it a bit corny, but I do find it entertaining. Not so much scary. Entertaining in the sense of, like, you know, the SCP Foundation or something akin to that. However, the movie did not go too deep into the substance itself, but perhaps in a sequel, I would like to see how consuming this can perhaps affect you. Like, could consuming this too much turn you into an entity? Or you go more mad as you consume this substance? There's a lot of room to play with here. But anyways, as I said, how this was a very pivotal scene because we're seeing Clark descend more and more into madness. He eats this memory entity. This also comes after the fact that he shows his former co-worker's head in the fridge, who I will explain a bit later. But some interesting things to note during this pivotal scene is how he compares these entities to pretty much furniture, and he kind of just does whatever he wants to them. He commands one to turn on the light. He commands the other to also turn on the light, but she does not listen. So yeah, he does a thing. So he basically like scalps that entity and puts it onto Mary when they role play an argument that he would be having with his wife. Very freaky shit. However, probably one of the most controversial parts of the movie, from the comments I've been seeing online, is we do get greeted with this, whatever the fuck this is. Now, this caused major backlash amongst the online horror community. Many purists especially were already cold to Kane's depiction of the Backrooms, but this part right here, where we get revealed this warped tall entity that, in my opinion, is a metaphor of a bastardized memory of Clark, you know, with the failing pirate Ottoman Empire furniture store he has, and this warped version of Clark. Now, you're either in the camp of you hated or loved it. And personally, I'm just going to speak for me. I am more in the camp where I appreciated the visual villain for the second half of the story. But I understand the criticisms, especially if you're not into those kinds of monsters or that kind of horror. Like, I'm not going to sit here and tell you in a vacuum, like, where I'm watching this with my friends and I'm thinking, oh my god, this large creature that's about to be revealed and stomping is going to be something akin to the black creature hinted on the drawing depiction of that wall scene, if you know what I'm talking about. When in reality, we get met with a pirate bastardized memory version of Clark. So, I get it. But to me, it works narratively, in my opinion, because as Clark mentioned before about this world, having memory versions of places and people, this entity being Clark's misremembered version in the Backrooms, fits well in my opinion. But visually, I understand how it leaves a lot to be desired, especially leading up to this moment. Like, I thought it was going to be a completely different entity in my opinion, but I thought it was a good curveball. How memory versions of yourself in the Backrooms can be very dangerous. And also, I spoke about this in previous horror pieces and videos I've made in the past, but I do personally get freaked out by exaggerated human features. So this tall, uncanny looking fucking thing did freak me out a little bit, but that kind of aesthetic and fear is up more of my alley. It may not have been for you. But anyways, I digress. This Backrooms, Clark basically sends the real Clark into the Shadow Realm, and it becomes a chase sequence between Mary and this entity. She kicks ass with the memorabilia from her childhood and gets saved from the men in yellow suits. The movie then ends with a very ambiguous ending because after she recovers from her wounds, we see these people seem to be preserving this warped version of Clark. I guess the plan all along was to try and subdue this entity, to study it, not necessarily kill it. But side note, the frustrating trope of trying to cage that cannot be caged. It would save so much more lives if you just killed it. Like, of course, I'm talking about examples in fiction like Invincible with Conquest. Literally every single Batman villain, especially Joker. But anywho, after this fact, our therapist Mary is now being interrogated, right? Now, if I saw a whole Lovecraftian secret that no one but a specific organization knew about, yeah, I probably wouldn't give any information out of spite so I could live. But despite all that, the ending of this movie was perfect. It was so poetic. And please, I'm going to remind you at this point, if you haven't watched the movie, go and watch it before I explain the ending and my interpretation. All right, I gave you an out, so let's talk about the ending. Now, my interpretation of the ending is we don't really know what happens to Mary after this conversation. My guess is they keep her around until she talks. But remember what Clark said in the kitchen scene. All these specific rooms, all these entities are memories of actual events, and we get a memory of this interrogation room with Mary in it in the final scene. Very creepy, very visually horrific to see our character in this form. But I just thought it was a great ambiguous scene. So while we don't know what happens to Mary, we get this Backrooms version of the room and her. And that basically concludes the overall premise of the movie. I did thoroughly enjoy it, but I did have some minor criticisms that I hope I see in a sequel, or even if we don't get a sequel, just initial critiques that can be carried on over to a future project. For instance, one of the things I did not like is that it was hinted by Clark that he spent a lot of time in the back rooms between the time he initially went in for the first time and when Mary finds him. But all this stuff happens off screen, you know? I wish we could have seen his descent into madness by spending time in the back rooms itself. Just a bit more time. But perhaps that's more of the fandom speaking out right now. And to address another elephant in the room, I do think the threat of the backrooms does get diminished a bit when you have free access to go back and forth from the real world to the backrooms, right? Because I'm thinking like, oh shit, a monster's chasing me, I'm gonna run into the portal out of this world. But then I wonder if things from the outside world can enter the backrooms. Can things from the backrooms enter the outside world? That would be a cool premise for a sequel. But yeah, to a certain extent, the threat of this other world can get diminished to an extent when you have free reign access back and forth. And then finally, the side characters I didn't really talk about that much. I just didn't think they had that much impact besides one's head in the fridge. But I thought the side characters that were recording Clark's travels into the backrooms were a bit like throwaway characters. But nonetheless, the actors for Clark and Mary both killed it and were the stars of the show, as well as the backrooms itself. The setting was a star. The world is a character. You can just feel the liminality throughout the whole film, especially paired up with the music. My God, can we talk about the music for a second? I believe the composer's name was like Ido van Bremen when I was researching the composers and other people that worked on this project. And apparently he previously worked on other films like Stephen King movies, and just wow, I felt like I was watching a video essay on my TV screen on YouTube, and it was just so wholesome and awesome to watch and relate in that way. I also love the set designs in virtually every part of the movie, even outside, not in the back rooms, but in the real world. The skies, the houses, everything just felt so liminal and nostalgic. The actual way that they built these sets to be very backrooms aesthetic, things not making sense, ramps here, ramps there, random holes, furniture cluttered together. I thought the attention to detail with Virtually everything physical in the movie was awesome. And shouts out to the people that, made all those props and set designs. And even the promos leading up to this movie were also so interesting to watch. Like, I'm gonna butcher the name, but Chiwetel, the actor for Clark, speaking about trying to relate to a young 20-year-old director and trying to understand his vision from an older person's perspective on what exactly is the angle in this internet horror-inspired film. Like, what it's supposed to be was really intriguing to watch in his interviews. They also did some segments where they had to map out the back rooms. I remember they also mentioned how big the sets were, and like you could physically get lost in the backroom sets. Like, that's fucking awesome. I wish I saw a comment in one of the videos where they want to keep the sets and just have people explore the backrooms like an amusement park. Like, literally. But remember, it's not a perfect film. As I explained in some of my criticisms before with some of the side characters and the monster entity in the second half. But overall, the meat and potatoes were executed well for me. Now, there's still room for improvement, of course, but I'm very excited about where horror films can take inspiration from this movie moving forward, and hopefully realizing that, hey, using some concepts from the internet might not be a bad thing. Horror films in 2026 are really looking up, and I cannot wait for more movies from King Pixels himself. I cannot wait to watch that new movie that everyone's also been talking about, Obsession. Leave a comment down below if you would like to see me review that movie the way I reviewed this one. But I'm just excited to see horror films in 2026 again. I feel like a kid who's opening Christmas gifts again for the first time. But from the promos to the actual movie itself, I really felt like I got a good experience out of this. But let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. Do you agree with any of my takes? Do you disagree? I'd like to hear, any opinions you had yourself, even if it's criticism or even if it's critical of the movie. And with that being said, I'm your internet bro, Raph. King Pixels, awesome job, man. Nixon 4, I know I said I was going to bring it up, but we're ending the video. And until the next video, I am outski.